Hey, what's up guys? We're back and we're going to be going through the process of changing the brakes in the E92 M3. Now the purpose behind a lot of my videos has always been to show you how easy a DIY project can be and how much money you can save. And doing the brakes is no exception. In fact, you're going to find that this is a really easy job and you're going to save a lot doing it, at least compared to my local dealer, which was ridiculous. So let's just talk about how much that was and then we're going to get into the process immediately. So my local dealer quoted me $1,217.90 just for the front brakes. So we hit the internet, we were able to get everything we needed, pads, indicators, rotors, for a total of $595.34. Now that adds up to a total savings of $622.56. Now that's pretty good given how easy this job is. It requires a very basic set of tools, very little experience in my opinion. You might run into a couple of things with maybe some bolts, being difficult, but really it's super easy. So let's get into it and we'll talk about it afterwards. All right, once you get your wheel off, this is what you'll be presented with. You'll see a little red bungee up there. I'm going to go ahead and hook the caliper on that once we get it off, and then I'll put just a little flower pot or something else to assist in bracing it so it doesn't fall down. So the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and get that retaining clip off that you see right here. That usually comes off pretty easy. It can go flying, so be careful. And there we go. Alright, now that we got that off, we're going to go ahead and remove the guide pins from the caliper. And there's two plastic covers that cover that up, so let me see if I can give you a shot of that. Okay, there's one. Here they are right here. So you're just going to pry that out with a flathead screwdriver. There's also one down here. I hope I catch that. Okay, you see we have our wrench seated in there into the guide pin. You're going to use a 7mm hex on that, and they're not terribly tight, so you can just hand loosen them. They thread a little bit, so you can use an impact like I'm about to, just to speed up the process. Play there. I'm not entirely sure we got this one all the way out. That feels like it's out. Alright, so now that we got those guide pins out, we need to go ahead and remove the bolts that are holding this larger metal structure around it. I don't know what the actual name is, but we got to get that out of the way so that we can actually pull the rotor off. So that's held on with two 18 mil bolts. They're on fairly tight. You have to give it a little bit of muscle to pop it, but it's really not too bad. So we're going to go ahead and pull those now. As soon as they do release, they come out pretty easy. You can see it down there through the crack. And that's what you're working with right there. Alright, so we have loosened the last 18 mil. Let's see if you can see it down there. There it is. That one's a little tighter. we're going to let that sit there. We're going to go ahead and get the caliper off the rotor, get it suspended from that bungee up there, and then we'll pick up and start taking everything else off. All right, what we're looking at right here is actually the sensor that goes into the pad. Give me a little shot of it in there, and then it wraps around up through here, back inside there, and ends back in that area. So my sensors haven't gone. I'm actually replacing these because my rotors have been reported as warped, and it's causing a horrible squeak. So hopefully this fixes it. There's probably about 8 months left on these pads, looks like, from judging from the other side. But we're gonna go ahead and pull that out and try not to damage it and just reuse it so we don't have to reuse a new one. We've got new ones. If we do break it and need to put one on, but we're gonna go ahead and just try to keep that on and reuse it. All right, so we're able to get the sensor out without damaging it. There it is right there, but you'll notice it's missing a little metal clip, and that is, you can see it right there. Just don't lose that if you're gonna reuse it, otherwise that sensor is not going to stay seated. All right, to get the caliper off, you're gonna need to wedge it outward this way from this point and down here. We've already done that. But just give it a little muscle and it will just kind of slide right over like you see there. So we're going to go ahead and pin that up to the cord up there, and then we'll also set it on that little flower pot down there for some additional support. Okay, so we are got the caliper off to the side, sitting on a little support, and has some additional little bungee cord there to hold it up and keep it out of the way. Now earlier we loosened up the bolts here, so we're gonna go ahead and pull those, and this will slide right off. Those are just hand tight at the moment. Now, I had gloves on, then I took them off and didn't pay attention to what I was doing and started working without them, so my hands are destroyed. But since they're now destroyed, what's the point of putting the gloves back on? There we go, there's one. And here's the last one. This will possibly fall right off. Yeah. Just pull on the bolt. And that's out. And this will now right out. All right, so we got that out of the way. We're gonna go clean this up a little bit, and then we will pull the rotor off. Now, one thing I want to mention I did not mention before, when you go get into this, make sure you turn your steering wheel all the way to the right or left, depending on what side you're working on. That's gonna give you a little bit more room to work with where the caliper is mounted right here. It just makes life a lot easier. You can just see it better and get your arm back there a little bit easier. So make sure you do that. It'll make life a lot easier. So we'll go ahead and get these off and take it from there. Okay, so on most other cars I worked on, that's my first M car, there's only one set screw here for the rotor. This car's got two. They are not in tight, and they don't need to go back tight, so don't wrench them down when you go back in there. They should be pretty easy to get out to begin with. I've seen some videos where people played hell getting these out and screwed them out, drilled them out, and that's just ridiculous. I don't know who put those in there, but they don't need to seat that hard. So those are loose. We're going to pull them. We're going to get the rotor off there, and we'll take it from there. Rotor back on, just be aware of your guide pins here. They're going to help you get it on there, and then just clamp these down just a little bit tight, nothing serious. Like I said, don't make life hard on yourself if you're going to do this again next time. That's plenty tight right there. All right, so we'll go ahead and get, pull those old pads. We're gonna collapse the piston, get that back on there, and wrap this up, clean up the rotor. So the pad should come out of the caliper pretty easy. This back one pulls out super easy, although I didn't really need to do that. We're gonna be using that to clamp it down to get the piston back in. This one takes a little bit more work. You might have to pry it. The last one on the other side I did was sealed up a little bit in here, but just a little flathead pried it on out. So we'll go ahead and get that one out. All right, you'll see we got our C-clamp on the old brake pad, and that's going to allow us to collapse the piston back down. So we'll go ahead and do that. All right, we have the piston collapsed back down. You can see that's flush again. We're gonna go ahead and get this bracket back on, get the pads back on, button it back up. We should be good to go. All right, here's a shot of our brand new brake pad that's going on. So we're gonna go ahead and seat these, get that caliper back on, clean up the rotor, and we're done. All right, one last time. Don't forget to put your guide pin covers back on. BMW's used these same covers for years, and I can't tell you how many times I have forgot to put them back on. In fact, I forgot to put them back on the other side of the car today. Now you can reach your arm around there if you have the tire cocked like this, and you can get them in there, but it's a total pain in the ass. So just do yourself a favor, check everything, make sure those are in before the tire goes back on. All right, last but not least, we're gonna get our sensor back in. There it is, and that's where it goes. All right, well that's a wrap on brakes for the M3. Now one thing I didn't mention to start this is that my brake sensor or wear indicators had not actually gone yet. I wasn't sure if I was gonna be able to get those out and salvage them, but we did, which allowed us to save a little bit more money. We're gonna go ahead and return those. We'll get $34.56 back, which is gonna bring our total savings up to about $657 and some change, right in that neighborhood. So that's really not bad for a pretty easy job. It's slightly time consuming, but it's still pretty easy. So I definitely recommend saving that money and doing it yourself. So if you enjoyed the content, please hit like. If you want to see more, hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.